My name is Flavia Teixeira from Light in the Shire Spiritist Group. Today is 17th of May 2022, and today we're gonna continue our study in what is Spiritism. So we're doing this every second Tuesday, generally, and we're doing these studies at Light in the Shire. And so this book, as you're sharing the screen already, is about, so it's Allan Kardec wrote this book in the 1800s, and it answered most of our questions. The question is about what is Spiritism, and most of people's doubts or information, I'd say. So today we're going to talk about concerning mediums, and that is from page 171 to 175. So on our previous class, sorry, just technical data here. On our previous class, we talked about types of mediumship. Pretty much we already, how, the body communicates with the spirit, what's the link connection, and how the spirits communicate with us. So I think for most, we just have to understand what kind of mediumships we can, someone can have. So we can have mediumships of physical effect, intelligent communications. Some mediums can see spirits. Some people mediums can speak with the spirits. Some people can hear, and sometimes it's just a sensation. And there are also mediums that through art actually receive, spirits that are involved with arts, and they actually reproduce sometimes the same work as the spirit used to do when they were alive. And a polyglot, so a person that the mediums that can speak different languages, which is very interesting. I never personally met a polyglot medium, or someone that could actually, under the influence of the spirit, would speak in a different language. So we know that the mediums that have physical effect, they have this capability of actually of producing a phenomena of creating the movements. It was when I was actually studying and reading about this, I remember, I think it was in the 80s, there was a very famous person called Uri Geller. He was a Russian guy, and he was able to actually bend and move objects with his mind. So I just kind of remember that, and not necessarily know if there was a mediumship, was like, through the helps of the spirit, always, just I don't know, phenomena, physical force, power of mind. But when I actually was reading about this, as a medium, you can reproduce a phenomena. It's just that came kind of to my mind. So these phenomena, this expressed through or obey and will be intelligent effects. And I suppose we can relate that to the talking table. So when Allan Kardec, when in the 1800s, these phenomena were very common. And it was the spirituality trying to bring us the awareness that there was more than what is in earth, or there's more than just body. We actually have a spirit, and this spirit is mortal. And the talking tables, this used to be like comparing to the different types of mediumships we have nowadays and we acknowledge nowadays, these actually talking tables was like one of the most primitive ways of the spirits communicating with us. So we definitely for sure acknowledge that today's communications are a lot faster and a lot more efficient, I would say. Very common kind of mediumship is writing. So what they call psychography. It's a good and fast way of get the message through. I suppose it's all about that, is the spirit trying to communicate and passing through their message. And this faculty, it's very common amongst the mediums. The initial accessories were needless, and that the medium could write directly with the hands in ordinary circumstances. So the only thing, we needed like is the medium with a pen and a paper, and the spirits would use then this, the medium as a channel and using their body to communicate, to write. So so the mediums write under the influence of the spirits who use them. And so, as I said before, is the instrument, yeah? And that means that most of mediums don't have control. And if we go back to Chico Xavier, the biggest Brazilian medium, he actually used to write the letters or the communications with his eyes closed. He had no idea what he was writing. He was just, stayed there, and allowing the spirits to write through him. So there are three types of writing of mediums: mechanical, intuitive, and semi-mechanical. I suppose the mechanical is the one that where the medium doesn't acknowledge what's happening. Yeah, he let the spirits to use their body to transmit the communication. Intuitive is when the medium actually receive the thoughts and then use their hand to write. So it's like you get the idea, like a voice in your head, or each medium probably is different, but a thought comes to your mind and you write it. And semi-mechanical, I suppose you do have some sort of influence. Yeah. So you do write it, but you are kind of conscious of what it's being written. So spirit science explains the way the spirit thought is transmitted to the medium and the role the latter plays in the communication. So effective communication depends on the will of the spirits. Spirits communicate only when they want to or when they are able to. So, and continues, no medium has the ability to make them come whenever desire and against their will. So the medium only is a medium because the spirit's allowed to. And they will come if they feel like it, not necessarily when the medium want them to come. So it is erroneous to link a mediumship to a talent. So a talent is acquired by work, and those who possesses them are always master of them. Mediums are not master of their faculty because it depends on an outside will. And this is very interesting because if you're using, we do have this belief in Spiritism that if you use your mediumship not in the right way, you might lose your ability. So it's an ability that you have for the time being, but it can be taken from you if you misuse them. So, and as you say, like it mentions here, a talent, if you have a talent for something, is something that you actually acquire as a person. and it belongs to you. Mediumship is not that. At the moment you might have it, but if you don't use well, you might lose it. So in chemistry, it's a known fact that there are combinations that can occur under light, and that composition and decomposition occurs under the actions of luminous fluid. Since all spirit phenomena result from the combination of the personal fluids of both the spirit and the medium, and since these fluids are physical, it should come as no surprise that in certain cases the luminous fluid works against their combination. And I think that it explains a little further is that spirit and medium, they must have a connection. They must have, like it's mentioned here, it must have an affinity. So intelligent communication also occur by means of fluid action of the spirit upon the medium. It means that the medium must to have an affinity with the spirit. So each medium is thus capable of receiving the impression or impulse of that spirit's thought to varying degrees. Such a medium may be a good instrument for one, but a bad instrument for another. And then he kind of explains that, so two mediums can be sitting side by side, but one can actually receive the thoughts of the spirit, and the other one doesn't. So the spirits actually communicate through affinity. So, and it's really interesting because if we look of the famous mediums we have, especially the ones that have written books, they normally have, they always communicate, the same spirits always make those communications. They generally don't tend to go like, oh, I'm gonna connect with one spirit and then I connect to another, wherever. They tend to always have like kind of these spirits that I suppose work with them to produce what they want to say. So it is a mistake to believe that is enough simply to be a medium in order to receive communications from every spirit with the same ease. The spirits prefer to look for instruments who vibrate in unison with them. So they have to be in the same energy, the same vibration. Otherwise, they won't connect, I suppose. Without the harmony, the only quality that can lead to fluid assimilation, communications are impossible and incomplete or false. I suppose that's also, we have to, and I think we have talked about this in previous classes, that there are spirits that actually they like to play. They like to muck around. The spirits that are probably not elevated, and probably these are the spirits that would look for mediums that are not not necessarily well trained, but the mediums that don't take the mediumship as serious, or mediums that use their mediumships to take advantage or profit from their mediumship. So so the fluidic assimilation, it is only established gradually over time. And this is explained why spirits who are accustomed to manifesting through one particular medium do so more often easily, and why the first manifestations nearly always display a certain restraint and are less explicit. Fluidic assimilation is necessary in communications involving typology. So typology when we actually write, right? So, and I suppose that even the medium, when they start their work, Initially, probably they will have, they're supposed to get used to it, to each other. And then once they start to do the work together, it becomes like more like a second nature, I suppose. So since mediums cannot impose themselves on the spirit they want to evoke, the medium must identify beforehand with the spirit through concentration and prayer, at least for a few minutes or even for a few days, and if possible, in order to induce and activate the fluid assimilation. This is the way to attenuate the difficulty. So I know that during our mediums activities, some of the mediums, like just before, even sometimes a day before, because some of these meetings, yeah, and mediums receive different spirits. They come for looking for help, and some mediums would, like, on the day prior, on the 24 hours prior, they already start to have the feeling of the approach of the spirit, I suppose. So, and you say here, if we want to connect with the spirits in a higher level, we have to vibrate on the same, try to vibrate on the same level. So that connection and connect. So through prayer, to meditation, to, harmonize yourself, your body, you can make those communications a bit easier. So wherever the fluid conditions are not proper for the spirit to communicate directly within the medium, the communication may occur through the intermediary of a latter spirit's guide. In this case, the thought only arrives secondhand, that is, after having passed through two sources. Thus, one can understand how important it is for the medium to be well assisted, because if he is or she is assisted by an obsessor, ignorant or proud spirit, the communication will inevitably be altered. So that's very interesting. So everyone has. So like if we have any problems, our spirit guide, the spiritual guide, I suppose, that follow us during our incarnation process. So the information, kind of a double hand. And I suppose that with that, you definitely lose quality, you lose things can get lost in, as they say, in translation, right? So the medium's personal qualities truly perform an important role due to the nature of the spirit her or she attracts. The most unworthy mediums can possess powerful faculties, but the safest are those who combine such strength with affinities in the spiritual world. The consistently good nature of the communications obtained from them determines the nature of the spirit. And I think we definitely have talked about that before, that, high spirits, they have a language of love, of peace, of, bringing us comfort. Like when we have a communication where, the message brings disorder, brings mayhem, brings worries. We have sometimes to question if what kind of spirits are giving this message, and reminding everyone again, like a spirit is someone that once lived, and when they go back to the spiritual world, they're not going to become saints overnight because they transition from a material to a spiritual world. So the spirit generally is the spirit is the same way they used to be when they lived. So in my case, when I disincarnate and go back to the material world, to the spiritual world, I'm going to be the same person. The only thing, I'm not going to have my material body. I still going to be the same person. And so, and that's why Spiritism always say, don't believe in everything. Um, have a judgment about, what's being said, and if makes sense, or if is a message that bring you comfort, then. And most of the time, especially like when Kardec wrote all the Spiritist books, and every single thing he wrote about it that came from the spirits, they had actually about at least 5 mediums confirming that information. And when he had a few mediums confirming, and all of these mediums received the same information, then he would acknowledge that was actually what they want to say, instead of just say one communication and make that communication as the role, as the truth that has been said. So he actually went in with these different mediums, and when they all confirm, so he would write down actually on the books. So whatever the mode of the communication may be, the practice of Spiritism from the experimental point of view entails many difficulties, and it's not without its problem for anyone who lacks the necessary experience. It is crucial to know how to distinguish amongst the various natures of the spirit that can manifest, to know the causes of all phenomena, the conditions in which they may be produced, and the obstacles they might encounter, in order not to ask the impossible. And it is no less necessary to know about all the conditions and all the dangers of the mediumship, the influence of the environment, and moral disposition. In this sense, I suppose, as we don't know who we are communicating sometimes, the medium that has the capability to communicate, it is very, very important to make sure that, do you remember, these spirits only make connection with people that vibrate at the same level. And so it is very important to not play with things. Lots of people have a lot of curiosity. They try to get in touch with the spirits out of curiosity, not to actually to learn something necessarily. If you don't have control of your mediumship, if you don't master the ability, you can actually put yourself in trouble. In Brazil, we have lots of we have hospitals, like Spiritist hospitals. In like my hometown in the south, we actually have 2 Spiritist hospitals that treat people. We know that in some areas like Belo Horizonte, they actually have hospice that treat people. And in these hospices, they actually specialize with people that actually obsessed by spirits. So probably, people that have their mediumship, open mediumship, and don't know how to use it and to control it. So it can actually be very, if you don't know how to use it, it can actually, you might think, if you don't have knowledge of the spiritism, you might think you're crazy, literally. On the old days, especially, I suppose these days, we are a lot more open. But I have a friend that her mother, when she was born, she was very young. As a child, she already had mediumship, and she was able to actually to describe. She described to her mother at age of 4 her birth. And so the family saw that as, like crazy. At that time, she probably now would be maybe in her 80s or even more. And her family was a very wealthy family. And they took her as a crazy, and actually took her to a convent, and literally left her there, and she never saw her family again, because of those days you know, something like that was actually, that person was crazy. He would actually be putting into mental institutions and you would be institutionalized by being crazy. And these days, we start to realize that some of these people are actually normal. They just being, you know, manipulated or by some spirits. So it's a very interesting, you know, point of view, I suppose. So if you want to know some more about, you know, the book, actually, this site here, Kadekopedia, there's lots of the main books in Spiritism. You can find lots of books there. Just access, it's a free access. And you can actually, you have access to a lot of Spiritist books. So our next talk will be, our next class on what is the Spiritism is going to be on the 24th of May. And it's going to, it's still the same chapter. We're going to talk about the dangers of the medium's mind counter. And this talk's going to be by Fran Diogo. So I hope they will be back with us. I hope you enjoy our talk, and I'll see you again maybe next week. Thank you, and have everyone have an amazing week. And I see you on our next talk. Thank you very much. See you soon.